All right. So, I figured since we wanted to do some components and design systems, I figured we'd do like a quick like Figma Make of some design, like a design system really quickly. Um, and when I do my workflows, I usually start by going to Coolors and picking my color palette just so that I have something to kind of throw in there. And I figured we'd do like a really super kind of quick vibe codey thing, and we'll end up having it spit out like the design system first, and then we'll work that design system into a larger project at some point. So let's see. I'm not a fan of that one. We're gonna one, two, three, four. We've got five. Yeah, it really is. We're gonna run through. Tell me when you see one you like.
Yeah, I want to go for one that is like really not what you would see from like a regularly vibe coded
Oh, okay.
work. So something like I feel like I see this like usually with vibe coded apps you see a lot of like they use the blue like as
Mm,
buttons and like a lot of white space. So if we
okay.
were to do something that's like very different from that, I like the
Let's see.
green, the nature harmony.
Ooh, this one?
Yeah.
Oh, that one's pretty. Okay, let's do this one. So, what I'm going to do is just grab. Yes, thank you. I don't need that. I'm just going to grab a screenshot of it for the colors, particularly the hex codes, and we are going to throw that into here. I want to. This is just Gemini, and I'm using the Student Pro version of Gemini, so that we can basically go full vibe code and we're going to do all of our prompting, all of our like generation through everything AI. So we're using Gemini on the student plan. We're using Figma. Mine is not on the student plan, but we should be able to use, like, it should cover everything that we do today in the student plan as well. Coolors is free, Antigravity is free, and VS Studio is also free. So everything that we're using should be accessible. Um,
Yes. And maybe we can talk about the reason why you might want to start with the prompt in like a prompt engine like Gemini or ChatGPT. So I think Figma actually just changed. Before they weren't enforcing like their tokens, but now they are. So
mm,
basically, the more complicated your project is or your prompt is, and that you put in Figma Make, the more tokens it's going to use up. And I believe for students, we're only given now a limit of 3,000 tokens. Um, so once you use up your tokens, then you basically have to wait until the next month to
that's
refresh. So
a
it's
really good
very,
point.
in order to avoid, using up all your tokens, basically use Figma, Make, or whatever AI prototyping tool you're going to use. Is probably going to be very similar. Like you're going to have a limit to how much you can actually generate in there. So it's very smart to actually kind of, instead of just like going all in on Figma Make, you might want to first start in like something like Gemini and just start to kind of refine your prompt so that way you can get close enough to what you want to get, and then copy that over into Figma Make. So yeah, just wanted to give that.
Yeah, no, that's a really good point. I usually use like, I mean, granted, generally my go to is Claude, but I usually go to Claude and refine my entire idea there, and then have it create the prompt based off of like the idea that I've worked on, just to kind of hone down and get as much of a one shot as I can. It doesn't necessarily use less tokens because the project, kind of comes out what the project comes out, but it does at least reduce some of that back and forth, which can kind of reduce some of that usage. So that is one thing that I really do enjoy doing, is having that kind of preemptive prompt making, so that I don't have to put the energy into the structured guidelines for it. if that makes sense. I can just kind of freeform it a little bit better.
Agreed. This is really great if you have like a really complex idea.
Yes.
To kind of start in something like Gemini first, so that way like you don't just use up all your tokens in like a couple variations in Figma Make.
Yeah, exactly. So let's go ahead, and you said we are not going to do this one. Let's see. I want you to create the prompt for my Figma Make. Okay. Actually, let me do project. I will do my best to spell everything correctly, but I make no promises. And then I'm actually going to change this really quickly to a thinking one. And then we're going to go ahead and tell it that we do not want a lot of white space. Let's see. For the design system, what kind of components do you want to see? Like, let's look at the bigger project as to what this would be for really quickly. Just to kind of give like a structure for what kind of components it would need to create. So let's see. Earlier, do you have any ideas on something you'd want to see that's like want to see built?
Yeah, so like we could maybe create a design system for a particular like web page. Like maybe since it's like a nature, we pick like some nature colors. It could be like a web page or a like national park or something like that.
Okay.
And so it kind of the design system would match that.
Yes. Why don't we do just for the sake of design? Why don't we do like a nature scrapbooking website where you can upload like pictures of kind of fun little things you found in nature as like a journal memory book.
Yeah, that sounds really fun. Yeah, let's do that.
Oops, where users upload pictures they found in it can have tagging for like where the item was found. Let's see, what else should it have? So we need a landing page. Whoops.
Yeah, a landing page, maybe some primary, secondary button.
Okay, let's see. Let's see what it comes up with for our design system. Let's see. Actually, you know what we'll add in? Make sure it has components for so we need like upload section, journal pages, table of contents, user profile, and anything else that it thinks that we need.
I don't know if this would be considered like design system, but since it's like a scrapbook kind of tool, then maybe it would have like
That sounds awesome.
That matches the nature theme.
We may have to upload some of our own stuff, but we'll see what it comes up with. It's done decently well on certain image generation, but for some assets and stuff, I've had to go in and like go make assets in Nano Banana or Firefly or something like that. Okay.
Yeah, that's very true.
Yeah.
That's a good side note because Figma Make, like if you were using Figma Make, it's very kind of limited on, yeah, like that
Yeah.
image generation, and that does use up a lot more tokens as well. So, yeah, that's a good side note to keep in mind.
Yeah. Okay. Let's see. Oh, and I forgot to throw in our color palette. Oh, it's still thinking. Do. Actually, let me do, where did our color palette? I got that in my, I'm going to stop it really quickly. Hopefully it remembers all this. It's thinking a lot. This part always takes the longest for me, and this is the biggest disruption to my workflow, is that I can't stay engaged anymore. It's I write, and then there's this stoppage point of, okay, it's thinking, like it's working and doing stuff, and now I have to occupy my time with something else and then come back to it. Biggest disruption to my workflow.
Yeah.
Like, if there are any like new work gripes about like how AI works, like, or how you're working with AI in your day life, is like the amount of like stop, go, stop, go.
Yeah, a lot of context switching.
Mm-hmm.
Because I'll usually at this point go probably check on something else.
Yep. I usually nowadays have like 4 or 5 projects going at once. And that makes my life really difficult because of that like mental effort of switching just like is exhausting. All right, hang on. It may have frozen here. I'm going to restart it and see if it's going to... Okay, let's try this again. It still can't do it. We may have to switch to a different... There we go. All right, let's try this. And we're going to add in our little image. Okay, use the attached colors. Any request for font?
Ooh, for font.
We can just tell it should match the nature themes. We don't have to... We'll see what it comes up with.
Yeah.
Okay, let's see if this works now. I'm going to actually switch it to fast and see if that helps with our generation. Okay, here we go. See, this creates so much more than I could possibly sit there and write out and organize. All from like our little thing. So I'm gonna go ahead and scan all of this in. And one of the things I've noticed is that different AI models will do it differently, and different like setups will do it differently. So as your AI gets to know you and so forth, like it will start to kind of respond and build things according to how you envision things, which is kind of an interesting thing. And there's a whole, actually I just wrote about it last night on LinkedIn. There's a whole article on like how like vibe coding and interacting with LLMs and stuff, how people get different outputs even with the same inputs. And so it can be like some people feel like they're not getting the results that other people are getting, and it's because of how you interact and how you talk to your LLMs.
Yeah, very true. And I also wanted to add in too, you could also talk to your LLM or to your like chat-based LLM, like ChatGPT or Gemini, you can talk about your idea out loud. Sometimes that's easier too than like writing out
It is, yeah.
everything. Yeah, so that is also an option.
I'm going to tell it to do the design system and pages. And we'll see what we get. And we're going to go ahead and hit go. And so it should be reading the file and looking at what is going on here. And it'll take a little bit of time because we've entered a lot of information. And we'll see what happens. I think one of my favorite things about this is like the fact that, I mean, it does work for me that would have taken me weeks and weeks and weeks and may have never come to fruition because I got frustrated with it. um, but beside that, like it's the ability to like take information from one website to another or from one app to another now in a way that's understandable. One of my biggest gripes before in industry used to be that I couldn't get like one app or component to talk to another, and it wasn't easy to transfer files like that. And now that we have like these coding systems and all this other stuff, it's so much easier to be able to get like cross app and cross platform communication.
Yes, agreed. And as new updates start coming out, like Figma, you know, came out with their like Figma MCP, so it can
Yes.
talk to other like Claude or Gemini tools directly, which is really awesome because it kind of eliminates an extra step of transferring things from one tool to another. Because usually you're not just using one tool.
No, I can't imagine any time where I was just using one.
Yeah, exactly. Maybe Claude is closer to like having housing everything, but we don't get access to Claude
Right.
yet.
Yeah,
So
this would be amazing. If we were doing this in Claude, I would be so happy because like our workflow time would be reduced by like at least half, and that would be so much easier. But that's okay because there's no one way to do it. And I would say, given the current market right now, I switch like between my LLMs. Like I probably switch my favorite every other month, if not more frequently than that. So like I'll go through and I'll get frustrated with one, I'll switch to the next. And the great thing is the outputs are the same. You're not like it's not like you're drastically different from, one to the other as to what you're creating. You can create seamlessly between different apps. So if like the other month my Claude code broke and they were having issues and the system went down and I needed to create something, so I took my files that were in my computer because you're working with Claude Code, and I just switched it over to Antigravity and I was able to finish my project without any interruption.
ooh, you should definitely show us how to do that.
I will happily show you. We can go over that today, actually. Um,
It's more like. Would you say that's more like a workflow thing?
I would say it's a best practices thing, just because it's consistent with how developers have worked in the past, and it creates a really good standard for maintaining your work so that it's passable to the next stage. So, like, you're creating this prototype, right? And ideally, in industry, you would want to pass that off to the dev team. Well, the dev team already has their workflows, they already have their system set up. You want to create as little friction in between the pass off as possible. And so, if you keep the same standards for writing code that they keep, that you'll make their lives so much easier and they will absolutely love you for it.
Yes.
So,
Yeah, the less messy, and sometimes with AI it can be very messy, like the code base.
yes, very,
So that's
very.
a really good thing to keep in mind, especially as a designer, because you want to make sure that you're like facilitating that handoff as best as possible
Yeah.
to development, and they're gonna be way more happy with you if you give them like something that already matches their current workflow.
And please make your developers happy. They have a lot of stuff that they go through every day, and it's frustrating, and it can be lonely work. Um, and there's a lot of like translating stuff that their work is not easy. Please make their lives easier.
Yeah.
While we're waiting for this, I'm just going to show you guys a finished piece. I say finished, it's never truly finished, but just so that while that's loading, I can kind of show you where we're going. So we're actually going to pull this up. And this is an app that I actually put into development here, just as a academic project to try. So I created this with Figma Make, and you can see here, like you said, a lot of white space, a lot of that blue. I actually did choose the color palette for this one just to kind of fit a theme that we were going for. But it is a clickable prototype, which is one of the things that I love. So like it is functional and everything. The name got changed and all kinds of stuff. You'll see little changes. So like all of this in production actually got changed. The name of it got changed. Some of this information was changed. Like this was changed, and we did a bunch of other work on it. I say we, it was me. But let me show you what that actually looks like in production. Hang on, let's check on our other file here really quickly while I pull this up. I need to open this up and pull this down and go to right now. I'm just going through my deployments, and unfortunately I cannot show you guys that side, so give me a second.
Yeah, no worries. I also wanted to talk about like back to how like Figma in translating one thing from one tool and then translating that to like maybe something else. Like if you actually wanted to like deploy something, um, Aya, one of our like creative members, actually posted a reel on our Instagram about her process of like if you wanted to actually ship a like web page or something, and if you were starting from like a design file, and Figma MCP has like become one of like my favorite like tools because it makes it really easy to just like transfer your designs into like an HTML format that like you can put into like Claude Code or Cursor or any like tool like that, and like actually have like a transfer your designs into like a live site. So that's a very powerful tool, and like yeah, really
Yes,
recommend anyone to check that out.
it is a
And
really good way to kind of
Figma,
low production. Yeah, it's very, very
yes.
nice. Give me
Yeah,
one
and
second.
another thing I don't know that I'm always curious about that I haven't have had time to look into is like how to actually maybe deploy things through GitHub, which
Yes.
I don't know if we'll have time to do that today, but
We won't have time to do that today, but it is relatively easy. It is, oh, this is the wrong thing. Hang on one second. Um it is relatively time consuming. Let me just pull this here. There we go. Okay, so here is the deployed app, just like we were talking about. I went through all of the stages, and if you entered in this URL, it would take you here. And so it does cost to deploy generally, which is why Figma MCP is so great. But this is basically like a fully functional web app. It's powered by AI right now. And so you've got all of these things. You can enter all this in and run, find matches. It's got mock data for the purposes of the app. But this was all created by vibe coding through Figma, and well, Figma and Claude and Antigravity. So it's easy enough that you can create something completely functional. This is not something that I would put into like production without having a developer, just because if you were to look at the back end of this, like through all the iterations, all of the other stuff, it doesn't have the security structure. It doesn't have like the structure for mass amounts of people to visit it. it is still a prototype. And so without the security features, somebody can still hack it or try to access the database or, steal your AI and make it do things that it's not supposed to do. Like those are all things that are possible if you don't have somebody who understands the back end side of things and knows what needs to be in place. So please, 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 as you're creating these apps, as you're doing these things, as you're deploying things, be very, very careful about things like exposing your API key, because that can cost you thousands of dollars. Somebody more recently had an issue where they had an exposed API key and they were charged $80,000 by their API provider for essentially like tokens that they didn't spend and their app didn't spend. It was somebody else that took that API key and plugged it into their own system. So do be careful with those things. I don't want anybody to get like a super ridiculous bill. Okay, so we have our design here. And it looks like everything came up really interesting. It actually did fill in some photos for us, which is something that's really nice. It doesn't look like it got a lot of graphics in there, but it did get some icons. Let's see. Let's go ahead and start clicking around. So if we get started, we've got our login page. So we got login and sign up. Ideally, these should not be on the same, like it should be on one page and you switch back and forth, but that's okay. I like that it has this little continue with Google. So let's see if we can go back. Let's go to the profile page here. Okay, this is really cute. What I'm not seeing is our design system. So we may have to do some work on that and just see what happened. But overall, I mean, this is a good starting point. Let's see, upload page. Okay. All right, so this is great, but we're not seeing our design system. Let's see.
Yeah, I think it used the design system to build the page, but it didn't provide, it didn't house the components anywhere.
Yeah.
Which I've run into that sometimes.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting because the design system is such an important part of your UX, journey. And unfortunately, I feel like vibe coding is really detracting from the process that you would normally go to. And so we're having to use heuristics and kind of the best practices things to kind of remind the AI that, hey, this needs to be our focus. We need to be human focused. A lot of times I'll put in there, hey, I want you to look at this through an HCI lens, or pretend you're a user experience researcher and look at this and tell me what needs to be changed. I saw there's a connection or a skill in, I want to say it was Claude, that actually has a user researcher as its skill now, which I thought was really interesting. I haven't played around with it at all yet. But it was entertaining to me to see that that's still those skills are still being used, but the methods in which they're being utilized are different. And I think going out into industry, one of the big important things is that people aren't going to know that that's there. They're not going to know that they need to look through that and look at things like accessibility and user friendliness and all of those things. For example, on the login page, as user designers, we know that this is a bad practice because it makes you feel like you have to fill in all of this information. It's cognitive overload. So we know that those things should change. And if you're just vibe coding something, it's not going to give you that type of information up front. It's just going to give you what it thinks you want without having those skill sets. So you need to be able to remind it that this is the practices you should be using. Okay, let's see. All right, now it has a design system page. Hey! All right. This is really cute. Wish the craft brown paper was a little different, but that can be updated. I'm not sure with rotation. I'm not sure what that one means. Oh, it's washi tape. Okay. So it's just showing it can have rotation. That's interesting. I like the status tags. That was a cool addition. I like the icons. Our buttons need some work, but that's okay. Form inputs are not bad. Design principles. It's interesting that it added this in here because I don't think that I would have added an actual text box to talk about this, but that's actually a really good point. I'd probably put in other information in here. But I know like a lot of times I will actually put into the prompt what the business's like ideals or principles or vision is. And that kind of dictates how the LLM produces the actual work. So if you're looking for, like, if your company is something that's really nature inspired like this, you can actually add that as part of the value system for the business and put that into your prompt, and it will create something that is aligned with that kind of value system. And that's something that I think is really cool. We didn't do that in this one, which I wish we had, but that's okay. I'm not going to make it go back and do all of this because we want to learn how to put all of this into the code. So, let's see.
And
all right.
Another thing to note, sometimes, okay, so maybe this is something you can talk about, Chandra, but like, Figma Make does have the copy design feature, which I really love sometimes because there's, sometimes I just don't want to like articulate to Figma Make what I wanted to do. If it's something small, like for example, like the font or like the buttons, like sometimes like I would just copy the design and update that myself manually just
Yes.
because it's sometimes just a little bit easier and I can probably do it faster rather than just waiting for it to like re-update the whole thing.
Right.
So maybe like you can talk about like when you could use Figma Make to like iterate on some changes. Because I know there's
Sure.
practices like if it's like a small enough change, like you might just want to update it like yourself, but sometimes it might just be easier to just do it
Yeah.
through Figma Make or something.
So let's say we wanted to change our design system in that kind of vein. Like a lot of times I'll do edits through the actual like through Claude Code or through Antigravity because I do find it's faster than Figma Make. But if I'm iterating on a design and I want to keep everything into like the design system, we can make some edits in here. And so let's say we want to change our design system and have all of the buttons be like less square. We'll do ask it to change the button shapes to be dramatically, right? We're going to use words that are very descriptive. The thing about vibe coding and the thing about LLMs that you have to remember is that their attention is kind of pre-programmed, and so if you're telling it something very factual, it's not going to place a great deal of importance on the attention for that item. If you want something to be a big change and you really want your LLM to pay attention to something, you need to use trigger words that are describing how important it is. That's why, sometimes threatening your LLMs works, or telling it that this is like the most important thing in the world changes that attention point to make the LLM's threshold of importance change. So use dramatic words when you need to, and use flat language when you don't want it to be very important.
Yeah, you can even do all caps words like that. Also, is like under that same vein, it will like pay attention to that more.
And I'm going to put in the word all because I don't want it to focus on just some of them. I want all the button shapes to be dramatically less square. So let's see how it does for this. I might also ask it to change this little icon in the background because it reminds me of a chicken doing a dance. So I'm going to take a screenshot of that really quickly. Oops, I did this wrong. Let's try this again. There we go. Okay. So let's see what happens. And then we'll have it. I drop a lot of screenshots into my my vibe coding just because I like it to see what I'm seeing. It's hard to describe in words sometimes what I'm seeing. So if I give it context, I know that it uses more tokens, and I have to be conscious of the fact that I'm using up my context window more when I upload images and have it do computer vision identification. But I do find that at least if it's seeing what I'm seeing, it tends to understand me better. Let's see what it does. See, this is one of those changes that if we had done this in Antigravity would not have taken quite as long, because when you're working in Antigravity, I don't think it made the changes. Oh, there it goes. Okay. It updated now. So now all of our buttons should be, and if we look on our design system page, we should have updated design system. Yep. Beautiful. So that's kind of how easy it is to iterate back and forth. Let's see how it does with the image. Please also change this background. And I paste my photo in there of what I screenshotted, and let's see what comes up. I'll have to go back to a page that has that on there. I think that was the home page. Nope, not the home page. Profile? Where were we before? Oh, I know we were somewhere. Where were we before? Login, that's where we were. Okay, so it found it. It's going to create an SVG. One thing I hope that they will move to is being able to have what's called a RAG system in Figma, where you can upload all of your assets and it will be able to pull from those assets. I think that that's coming, but I don't think it's quite there yet. So you can have like an inspiration board. Oh, and it didn't remove them. Okay, so we're gonna have to tell it the other pattern is still present. There we go. See if that happens to change it. It says it was root pattern. It's not what I think of when I think of roots. I also wish it was easier to see. Like, there's usually a way to kind of, oh good, it removed it. Yay. To kind of see like what the thoughts are. Like, you can see them when it's being read, but you can't see it afterwards. And I wish that had a longer bit so you could kind of like see where it's seeing the things and go back and fix those. But let's say that we're happy with where we're at. And now we're going to go ahead and, whoops, wrong thing. Hit download. And so it's a zip file, and I've already created a space in here. So I've created a file that I want to drop everything to called Vibe Coding Demos. And so we're going to save our entire design system and pages zip here. And this is a really important step. Let's see, let's hear. Okay, thank you. I don't need that right now. So it should have downloaded this entire file system that it created right here. And all I did was I pushed, instead of our eyeball so we can see what it's producing as a, like the visual part, I just clicked code and I went and hit download. So you download the entire zip file. So now I'm going to go ahead and navigate to my file space. Give me just 1 second here and I'll show you guys where I'm at. Projects. All right. So you can see in my file space, I've navigated to my vibe coding demos, and right here is my zip file that has all of my files in it. And for the context of this, I'm actually going to create a new folder, and I'm going to name this Nature Journal. For best practices, always make sure that you don't have spaces in your file names when you're working on a project like this. So here's my file system. So here in my files, I'm in my vibe coding demos. This is the zip file that was downloaded from Figma. And here is I just created a new file. Go new folder. And I named it Nature Journal. Try really hard not to leave spaces in here. Use underscores, use snake case, use anything that doesn't create a space, like in this one, design system and pages. This is bad practice. Don't do this. But we're going to go ahead and drop that file into the Nature Journal file. And I'm going to open it, and I'm going to highlight that one, and I'm going to go ahead and tell it to extract all. This is a really important step. And it's going to ask me in a different window if I want to select this as the file destination, and I do. I want to keep it the same. It's going to take a minute because there's a lot of information in there. So now I have my design system and pages. If I open that, I can see all of these same files in here that were over on this side. So we've got guidelines, we've got SRC. Inside of SRC should be all of these other files that were in here, broken down into a way that's easy for anybody to kind of follow and understand, especially if you're on a development team. So we want to make sure that those files are there. Then we can go ahead and take our Antigravity app that's here, and I'm going to tell it to open a folder, and I'm going to navigate to that exact same folder that I was in earlier, Nature Journal. And I'm not going to click into it. I want the whole Nature Journal file to be visible. And so I'm going to go ahead and say select folder, and it's going to open up again. Ask me if I trust the authors. Since we're technically the authors, yes, I trust the author. And so now we have the design system files, and you can see that they are all in here just like before. Cloud sync is off. Oh, we should turn this on. Oh, I'm not going to do this for today. We're just going to leave this off. It's fine. This is for Spec Story, and we don't need that right now. That's a totally different thing that you can download if you want to kind of have traceability on your files. It's a really good practice, but it's not needed for what we're doing. Okay, and I see I haven't updated this, but all right. We're gonna go ahead and tell it to look at the files. So this is just like any other LLM. So we're gonna say look at the files and review and tell me anything, or we'll have it tell me what the project is. This is just a good sanity check to kind of make sure that what your files have is understandable to the system that you're working on. So it's thinking. Right now, all of these files that it's seeing here are still on my computer. They're nowhere else. And so that's an important thing to remember, is that your connection to your computer matters. If you were to open Antigravity on somebody else's computer, you're not going to be able to find your files unless you upload them to the cloud or do something like that. This is all local right now. If you wanted to share it with somebody else, they wouldn't be able to see it because it's still local to your computer. And so all of the preview, all of the visualization that we're going to be doing here in Antigravity is all just stored on my computer. I can't share that link with somebody and have them see it unless I take other steps in order to share it with them. So let's see what it gave us. It gave us a lot of information. It analyzed everything. It says that it's a nature almanac, which is exactly what we created, a digital scrapbook web application. So that's perfect. We've outputted what we expected. It has the design system clearly labeled. We've got all of the elements. We've got our features. Here, it did not use our design system, and that's okay. As long as it has context for the design system, it should be okay. All right, so it's working with the tech stack. This is always good to know because there are certain tech stacks that are unable to do certain things. And so I've had a situation where I've had to completely change the tech stack that I was working with and do something else with it. One of the things that like AI coders do is they leave more data than you need in your system. So if you have to suddenly switch, all of your old stuff is still there. It doesn't really delete anything. And so sometimes you run into issues where your old stuff is interfering with your new stuff. You want to iterate as little as possible in order to kind of keep it as clean as possible. Otherwise, you're going to start running into issues the longer that you're working with a file, the longer that you're working with a system. Just something to keep in mind. So, let's see. Okay, we're going to tell it that we'd like to preview this. So, I want it to open it in my browser. It's still going to be local. I can't share the link with anyone, but I do want to be able to see it and preview it while I'm working on it. So it's creating a task list. This is normal for most coding LLMs, that it gives itself project files and tasks that it needs to follow and match each one. Normally, there's like a whole list of them when you're starting from scratch, but since we've done most of the coding work through Figma Make, this is going to be fine. It's going to ask you if you want to run the commands. You can either reject and stop it or go ahead and run it. It's a good thing to be aware of what this is doing, and this takes some knowledge of kind of what's happening. And so it's trying right now to install NPM. NPM is a file system, or not file system, program system that kind of helps visualize and creates the ability to load things onto a local system and have kind of like a virtual running space working. So we're going to go ahead and run those things. This is something I run commonly. Just be aware it will likely slow down your computer because you end up having virtual workspaces that are running. And so if you're noticing all of a sudden you started vibe coding and your computer's running really slowly, just be aware that there may be some virtual systems that remain running that will need to be shut down. And it's thinking. And that's another thing too. If you're running this on your computer like I am right now, it uses a lot of memory and it uses a lot of resources on your computer. There are cloud-based systems that you can do this in instead of running it on your computer. And they have kind of a larger system that you can work from. Whereas if you're running it from your computer memory, it may be slower, it may take more time. You might hear your fan running on your computer a lot. Just be aware those are fairly normal things. This takes an enormous amount of compute or energy to run. So that's something that you need to keep in mind. It's going to take a while. This is usually the time where I would go to my second task and start like working on that other task. And so that context switching, man, is that real? I'm going to close a few things down just to give it the time. I don't know if you guys can hear, but I have a really good computer, like a really good computer, and the fan is running like crazy right now.
Yeah, I will say upgrading my computer was like the best thing I ever did.
Yeah.
Because my old computer, it was like an old MacBook Pro, and it would still struggle with like running multiple platforms
Yes.
at a time. So yeah, upgrading my computer to like a newer Mac with like the M4 chip, even like it made such a difference.
Yeah.
In, like how quickly I could get things done, and I know that M5 chips on the Macs are like even better now. So yeah, it's definitely worth it now, especially if you're gonna be running like Figma Make and then Antigravity and like all these other tools. Like it's gonna slow your computer so much down.
Oh yeah, for sure. It's part of it. And as much as we talk about how much this speeds us up, because it does. I mean, this would take us, months of work to build if we were building this kind of independently. But because we're able to use vibe coding and stuff, like it speeds us up, tremendously. But there's still these moments of downtime. There's still this work and effort and compute that goes into it that you just have to be mindful of. All right, so it's asking me if I want to run it now. There are easier ways to do this, but I just want to show you guys like what it takes to do this in Antigravity. I usually have VS Code. Actually, can I bring it over? I usually have this running. This is Visual Code Studio. I have Nature Journal opened already here, and I can open up any of these files that I want to be able to see what's going on. So like index.html is running here, and I could have like previews running this way as well, and it would take a lot less like energy and time than it would take to have this Antigravity do it. But Antigravity has done it, and now it's up and running here on the local host. It's trying to get everything loaded in, so it's going to take a few minutes. But it is running it and making sure that everything is running for us. I think it's interesting that it's actually doing the controlling right now of running through everything, which is new. So right now it's actually running agentically and going through and running through each page, which is really entertaining. Every time I go and do some vibe coding, like something is new all the time. Like there's never a process that is like linearly the same. This is always a different sort of situation. So this is now translated from what we did in Figma Make to now basically like an app that you could hand off to development if you were ready for that. We can go ahead and do some changes. So like I'm going to say that login and sign up should not be on the same page. It should be a switchable component. So if I go back to Antigravity, it's going to say it needed to change some things because it did its walkthrough. Look, it says I went ahead and previewed the application myself using the browser sub agent, and it looks fantastic. I love that it did that. That's crazy. All right, I'm going to say on the login page, the cards for sign in and create new account are both visible. Let's see. I'm going to tell it to pretend it's a UX designer. And just kind of give it where I'm going with that. make edits to make this user friendly. Okay, let's see what happens. So our browser is still up and still running, and the changes should be made in the background, and we may or may not have to update that, just depending. Sometimes it auto updates, sometimes you have to tell it that it needs to refresh. So it found out that it needs to refactor that page, and then it's going to go ahead and agentically do it itself. This is new for Antigravity. I kind of love it. So I wonder if I can side by side this. There we go. Can you guys still see everything okay?
Yes.
Perfect. Okay.
Are you recording this?
I am, yeah.
Okay, cool.
So it's thinking through, it has issues, it's auto-correcting. This is like, Antigravity has been pretty good because it takes less of like that user kind of interaction and does things a lot more automatically. You can see it's agentically like going through and doing the manual testing itself, which is really kind of fun. See what it came up with. So it's actually like going back and forth and switching between the pages to make sure that it's actually functional. This is new, and honestly, like I had been doing this whole step manually and manually checking everything. So in order to like see that this is actually doing what it's supposed to do is really cool. I think this playback is really interesting. So it's actually showing you that it works and like basically giving you like proofs that it does what it's supposed to do, which is really awesome. And it created a little file to be able to show you that yes, it does function. So one thing that's a really good habit to get into doing is making sure that your README file is running, and it is running, but it is not actually explaining. So I'm going to ask it to update the README. And if you don't know, a README file is basically just instructions for the next person that's working on your app or your files so that they know what you're doing and where your intentions were and kind of how you built everything so that they can reproduce the processes and reproduce the thoughts and have context for what you're working on. So this is actually, it just says update me on the README, but you always want to check on what tasks it's doing. And you want to be careful about like what files you're giving access to. That's one of the things we didn't talk about very much is you saw I gave it access to this single file system with all of the files for this project inside of it. I don't want to give it access to like large amounts of things on my computer because it can go in and make changes to those files. It's creating new things and rewriting code. And if you give it access to the wrong files, you're going to end up doing harm or damage to your computer. So you do need to be conscious about that. All right, accepting the changes, and now you see it's updated this whole thing so that now there's better information about what we're doing, why we're doing it. One thing I don't see is that it didn't add any of our notes about our design system on here, but I do see that we do have our guidelines here, and so that is present in here. It's giving purpose, style, use, which is all good context to have. So I wouldn't update this into the README file, even though it probably should go there. One of the other things, you'll see these little circle buttons. It generally means that everything needs to be saved, and it doesn't look like it's saving. I'm going to tell it to save everything. See if it comes up with that. And while we're doing that, we can go ahead and look and see if our System is working. Now, this is still just in the UI phase. We don't have a database in order to store sign up information or any of those things. It's trying to upload it to my GitHub, which is fine. We will need to do that at some point. All right, we'll see if it automatically joins it to my GitHub or not. Oh, no, it doesn't, and that's fine. So everything is still saved on my computer. If I wanted to share this, I need to do the Git repository. And I'm going to tell it that we're going to go ahead and do that. So it did that. Go ahead and so as I was saying, there's nothing, like if you enter in information here, there's nowhere for that information to be stored, and there's nowhere secure for that to be stored. So there won't be, like this isn't functional yet, right? You can't have anything going to it because there's no database and there's no secure space. If you were to create something, like if I were to tell this, hey, please create the database for, storing user information, you have to be very careful, because if you aren't doing that securely, then give me 1 second here. There we go. If you aren't doing that securely, then you're exposing, your customers' data and stuff like that, and that ends up being a big security risk. So you do need to be aware of, there are things that just because you're creating it on the front end and it looks beautiful and it is clickable and it seems to work, doesn't necessarily mean that you've supported the backend enough to be utilizing this in actual industry places. This is generally just prototyping. It's going to take a while. I should have initialized my GitHub at the beginning before we started working on all of this, because it takes a lot of time and energy to upload it after the fact. I tend to forget that that's a thing that I need to do. So I try to remind myself, and I usually try to work backwards. Like I'll start with my GitHub and create a repo and then download that so it can update frequently. Back before vibe coding, this was way easier because you would end up saving your changes to your GitHub every couple of like elements or changes that you did. So you were frequently uploading every little bit. And now that we're vibe coding, it happens a lot less and you upload a lot more information. And so it gets a little bit, I guess, overwhelmed sometimes, which is fine. It just takes longer to upload and process. And sometimes you have to chunk things out into smaller bits so that it can update. Let's see, it's doing a git ignore. Git ignore is things that you don't want it to see. So if you were to have your API key for something, you would put that in your git ignore so that, well, you wouldn't put that in your git ignore. You would add that page to your git ignore so that it wouldn't get uploaded and people couldn't see your API key. So you put that in a text file, and basically tell it, hey, please don't post this. Please don't show this off, which is very useful. All of your work should always have a git ignore just to keep certain parts from being exposed. It's just one of those really good practice things. So we're running all of those. I highly encourage you to read through and help understand what you're saying yes to when you're creating something. Because I've been doing this for a little bit, I kind of understand what's going on and what's needed. And for the purposes of this one, because I don't want to take up too much time, I'm just kind of flying through it. But I want you to learn like all of these things, especially with Git, is, so you know what you're doing, you know why these things are happening, and you can actually talk to your LLM and be like, hey, why did you use this command? What does this mean? What are you doing? With my Claude code, I have it actually set to teach me as it's coding, so that I can see what's happening and what's going on. All right, and one thing I don't see is here we are, but I don't have a way to go back to the main page from the login page. So right now, because we did the GitHub repo, everything has been pushed to my GitHub repo. So now it's in the cloud. So now if I did go to a different computer and I could log into my GitHub, all of my files would be there. It's no longer just on my computer. Actually, I have 10,000 changes and I need to generate a change. It's not quite there yet. I have to commit it. And it didn't do that for me, which is kind of funny. There we go. Oh no! It failed to commit. Oh, you know what? It might just be... I'll have to look at that here in a minute. It did. It went through.
Question?
Yeah.
So how long this session will take?
How long will it take?
Yeah, how many hours or this session gonna be take?
Did we put timing on it? I don't remember if we did. I thought it was like an hour and a half.
An hour and a half. Are you saying for like the event or for just like how events? Oh yeah, it would take. I think we scheduled it for an hour.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's gonna run quickly, but I also wanted to like make sure that we had the recording so that like we'll record the event too, so that people can go back and play it back, and see where they're at.
Okay.
And we may run this twice too. Oh hey, look, it updated back to home now. Yay! We have a way to get around. All right. So we even have a little button up in the corner now that says view your design system. That's fun. Obviously, we'd remove that for production, but at least we have this and it's really cute. All right. I'm going to say with the 10 minutes left in this hour that we have, let's look at... Do you guys want to go over GitHub really quickly, or do you want to look at something else? Or go to like next stages for something? Any thoughts?
Are you saying for the session or do you for right now?
For right now, I guess. Is there any, like, what direction would you like to go from here?
Is this live? Like, or is it just local?
So this is still running local. So you've got localhost right here up in the corner. You can tell it's local. If we wanted to deploy this, we would go to GitHub and look at our GitHub, and then go to some sort of a deployment app. Like I use Railway a lot, and we would deploy it to Railway, but that does have associated costs with it.
Yeah. Okay.
So.
Well, maybe we can just talk about that. We don't have to show it because I know that, like it costs money. But yeah, like I think I'd be curious to know like what that process is like. Or I mean, I know with GitHub it's like usually free to do that.
So GitHub is gonna be let me see if I can find my news repository. I don't know what it called it. That's one of the problems, is finding it afterwards. If you didn't name it, makes it harder to find. Did it tell me what it made it? I don't see it. Hang on. So, oh, it didn't create it. Oh, how fun. Okay. So it only created a local one. But we're gonna switch over to VS Code for a minute. Because here is where we are at, and it's having trouble uploading. So, part of that is because there isn't a repository yet. It's trying to create one and I don't like the one it's trying to create. That's weird. Why is it? Let me just see what happens really quickly if it does this. I don't need that. Let me see if it created something. Hold on. Where did we go? Alright, it's still just doing this locally. So, if we go here, we look at what I've got. We're going to create a new repository. We're going to go backwards. Nature Journal is available. I'm going to have, give me a short description. It's thinking. That is not a short description. We're going to just steal this part and go with it. And I'm going to keep this one private. If you do template or if you do public, everyone can see it. So just be aware of that. It does have a get ignore, but I'm going to let that do that. I am going to add a license. I generally add just this as a license. Depending on what licensing you have is what other people are allowed to do with the work that you create. So you need to be aware, and I would really recommend looking into licensing. There are academic licenses that tend to let everybody kind of utilize your work and have it all open source. So you just need to be conscious of what you're creating and what you're clicking on when you do something like that. I'm going to go here and I'm going to go back to my Visual Code Studio, and you actually have inside of your Visual Code Studio you have a agent. Right now all I have is Haiku available, so we'll see how this goes. But I'm going to click up here and I'm going to say I created this repo for this file on, actually it's for this project. All right, let's see if it's able to do this. There we go. I think one of the big things about vibe coding like this is there are so many things happening and so many buttons happening that as you're going through it, it can feel really overwhelming, especially with the kind of coding that's popping up and the commands that's popping up. And the best thing that I can recommend is that you kind of tell your agent that you're working with to teach you along the way so that you know what's going on and you know what's happening. All right, so now it should be live at my GitHub. We're going to go back to my repositories. We have this one here. And, all right. So here is all of the new information. Let's see. I don't know if it finished. It hasn't finished updating yet. Hang on. Alright, I'm gonna have to go back and tell it that it didn't finish pushing it. So like in this situation, I'm going to explain what's going on. And basically just normal language, talk to it and work through it as if it was a partner and we were trying to solve this problem together. It's trying to just pull part of it so it doesn't pull the full file, which I wish it was doing more than that, but I think it's still running get remote instead of let's try that. All right. So it's telling me that I need to refresh it and see if that helps. So let's refresh our page and see if that's changed anything. And I'm still not seeing my files here, but I do see I have 2 branches, which is interesting. All right, so I'm going to ask it if everything got pushed to the main branch. I find that this is what most of my vibe coding days are like now, is problem solving things like this. So now it found that there are 2 branches and decided it needed to be in one, so now it's pushing it to the main branch. We'll see if this works. I don't think this is going to work. The reason I don't think it's going to work is because I didn't see those files in the master branch. I'm just going to try to do this and see if it's somewhere else. Let's see. Nope, that was not what I intended to do. Hang on. Delete. All right, let's just go back here. Update again. Oh, look, everything is there. It did fix it. Yay! Okay, so now everything is on the web. In a Git repo, which is where I want it to be. So now all of my files are stored up here in a Git cloud. And if I wanted to deploy this, I would go to somewhere like my Railway. These are the 3 apps that I have that are deployed right now. One of these is actually running the Discord bot for creative on Discord and is what's kind of managing all of our portfolio and resume reviews, which is really fun. But you would click new, maybe. There we go. And connect it to your GitHub repository. You would put in the name of the GitHub repository. I'm already logged in, and then you would be able to kind of deploy it and have it work. And then you would get a domain. You can use like Hostinger or kind of who else does it? GoDaddy, like any domain service, and be able to connect your domain to it. Or Railway will create like a generalized domain name for you. But it's not very professional. Like, so the one I showed you earlier was just like a string of like numbers and my project name associated with Railway. And so it will provide you with something. You can demo it as that, and have it available for people. But like I said, it does cost. There are other free services other than Railway that do deployments for different things and for different tech stacks. You can ask your LLM like what works best for you and kind of like figure out how to come up with guess, like your specific situation services that work really well for you. When I was going through for what I needed, Railway was best for me, and I was willing to accept the cost. I think right now it's running like $8 a month for me, just to run those 3 apps. So it really just depends on what your needs are and what your ability is. There are plenty of free ones that will run small models and small things for you. If you're running a lot of AI based things, then you're going to need more powerful services that are going to be able to run those items and have that back end for you.